Let's make a mushroom cup, you guys.
Hi, I'm Chantal, and I'm learning how to be a potter. Started about a year ago, finding some fun vintage molds on Facebook, and it just kind of grew from there. So join along with me as I take this pottery from a little hobby to hopefully a thriving ceramics business.
So this mold is one of the first ones that I got. And I was under the impression you had to clean them all. I have since learned that you do not. But this is such a fun little mold. It makes 2 cups at once, and they each have these mushroom motifs on them that are just so cute, and I really enjoy them. And I gotta clean out both sides, apparently, in my mind. But again, this is one of the first ones, and I had no idea what I was doing really, and you can kind of see I made a little mess as I was pouring it out, but I mean, I did a good job, right? Turns out that actually they were poured a little bit thin and the little handles were hollow, and that won't really work if you have a hot drink. But again, we're learning, we're figuring it out. And apparently this is a highly sought after mold. It's an Arnell's mushroom thing. And I had no idea, obviously. And I'm still learning. Didn't know you're supposed to cut all that extra stuff off the pour thing beforehand. I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on here. So once I had them out of the mold and I let them dry for a little while, I decided to go ahead and go in and clean all that up. And as you can see, I'm a little bit beyond the leather hard stage. I still need to make a damp box to let them dry out a little bit more cleanly. But I wasn't too late to get them trimmed neatly. I really was able to, with my little trusty pocket knife, go in and get a pretty smooth top. Now, I said I had poured them a little thin, and you can kind of see here that even with them being a bit thin, I'm still able to get it to hold its shape pretty well. And part of that is because of how long I let them dry, and that I let them rest without really messing with them. When I set them aside and did not mess with them at all. Now, even though I'd let them rest for a little too long, you're still able to use water to get them, like the edges cleaned up and stuff like that. So that's what I'm doing here. I just a little bit of water on my finger and then rubbing down any of the parts that really weren't absolutely necessarily sharp or anything, but just kind of sticking up. So I can go in with a sponge as well, but I was feeling the finger in that moment. See, the sponge on the other cup works a little bit more efficiently, a little bit quicker. I'll be honest, I was a little bit concerned that I was being too aggressive with the sponge at first, because it was past that, just an ooch past that leather hard stage, but ended up working out. I didn't mess up any of the edges or anything like that, and I ended up with 2 pretty nice little cups. And here I am, I'm going to test out these different tools. So I was using my knife straight up, and I've got this other one, and then I can go in with a sponge. It's not anything in particular that makes one tool better than another. It's just it's kind of like choosing the finger versus the sponge. What feels good to you in the moment, and none of these tools are super expensive. I think I got this little wooden tool I'm using here as part of a clay working kit on Amazon for less than $20, so very inexpensive. It was multiple tools, and I've used them multiple times over, so I mean, you're not having to spend that $20 every time, but it's also got one tool on the top and one tool on the bottom, so you can kind of just flip it over and use that, which is really, really handy when you're learning and you're just experimenting what works best for you. Now, once they were cleaned up, I went ahead and bisque fired them so that they'd be a little bit easier to handle. Again, I said that I had poured these a little thin, and so they were really fragile once they had dried. And so bisque firing them really just helped them retain their shape and not be as breakable, because literally when they're green and they're very thin, it's highly likely that you could just snap it just by holding it, not even squeezing it in your hand, but just holding it. So as a result, going in with a bisque firing kind of stabilizes them. Now, is it bisque firing required? Absolutely not. I have learned in my very short time as a potter that you can go straight from the mold to glaze and do a fire right after that, and it's fine. You just got to make sure there's lots of drying time to make sure it's very dry. But what I mean by lots of drying time, I mean like 24 hours. You know, I'm not even talking like weeks and weeks, unless it's a particularly thick piece. If it's just a thin piece like this, you're really talking just a day or two after you've glazed it, let all that moisture out, and you're good to go. But in this case, I went ahead and did a bisque fire because, again, I'm very new at my journey and I'm trying out what works for me. And it's kind of whatever works out for you, right? The underglaze I'm using here, because I did decide to do underglaze on this entire piece and then dip it in a clear glaze. But this underglaze right here is a new one to me. It's called oatmeal. And I really thought it would end up being a beige because it kind of looks like a pretty beige when you're putting it on, which is really nice. I needed a beige, which is why I bought it. In my mind, I perceive the food oatmeal to be quite beige, but the actual fully vitrified and fired end result of this oatmeal underglaze is a lot grayer than I anticipated, which is fine. I also needed a gray. Grays are great. So I'm just going to do 3 coats on all the parts that I thought ought to be a beige color, and it turned out to be gray. But that's, part of the process with pottery is learning to love your, quote, mistakes or things you weren't expecting. And I'll be honest, I really love how this mug turned out, and I'm kind of sad that I didn't do like a whole rainbow series. I think that would be really cool, but I would definitely, if I had this to do over again, I would not have picked the oatmeal when I initially fired it, because it's awfully gray. But now that I've kind of sat back and had the cup for a while, you know what, I kind of would stick with it. It's kind of neat. I don't know if you noticed, but each side of these mugs has a different little scene. So one side is, they're very similar, don't get me wrong, but each side is a little bit different, and it's kind of fun having the 2 different little scenes to paint. Because if I had to paint like 10 of these, for example, it might be kind of annoying, but having the 2 different sides adds a little variety, which is kind of fun. Now, after I finished the little bodies of my fungi, I went in with a fire engine red for the tops, the hats. Is that the hats? Are the tops of mushrooms called hats? Are these what am I even doing here? I don't even know the names of the parts of a mushroom. Did I graduate from school without knowing the parts of a mushroom? No. That they don't teach you that, do they? Do they? Did I just completely miss that day in biology class? Anyway, point being, the little hat of the mushroom got a fire engine red treatment, and like the other underglaze, you just don't even know what color it's really going to turn out to be. And I was really floored because this fire engine red is so beautiful once it's fired. But I'll be honest, it's also beautiful while it's on the cup before it is fired. It's a pink. I don't know how to explain why they're both beautiful. Both the pink version of the fire engine red, which is like a chalky, you can kind of see it where it's drying here in this shot in the center. It's like a chalky, pale, true red, and then whenever it's fired, it's a true red. And that just floors me that both are so beautiful. I think if I could find an underglaze or a glaze that had that same pink tone to it, I would be really excited, because that is a really cool color that I'm coming to really enjoy. Now, I know that these molds were manufactured in like the 70s, and there's like a whole set of like orange and brown, Mary mushroom kind of thing going on, but I really enjoyed the red on these. It's just a fun variation on mushrooms, and I've thought about making like a whole rainbow set, and I may have mentioned it earlier in the video too, like a whole rainbow set where your handle and your mushroom tops, hats, did we decide on hats? The mushroom hats all match in, not like each, but like the hat and the handle of the mug all match, and then the rest of the mug is the same. So everybody gets like the teal body and the little yellow flowers, but each mug is a different, like one is purple, it's got a purple hat and a purple handle. I think that would be really fun. I don't know. It seems like that could be really cool. Now, one thing I did think about doing was doing some gold highlights on these mushrooms, because I saw that once another creator did mushrooms that had little gold freckles on them, or a gold edge or something. It was really stunning. But my concern is with mugs, that gold can't go in the microwave. So that would be really sad to me. It'd have to be your quote fancy mugs, which I'm not sure that little mushroom mugs are your fancy mugs. I don't know. What do you think? Make sure to drop a comment below and let me know. Is the Rainbow Cup series a good idea? Would it be cool to have gold on some of them? Would you use a mushroom mug as your fancy mugs? Hit me up. I need to know. Now, these little flowers that adorn the side over here, they're really, really, really tiny. And they're not even really flowers. They're just kind of little sticks with little nubbins on them. So I went in with a yellow, but they don't really stand out that much. I feel like they kind of stand out more on the white than they do on whenever I get the final color on the rest of the mug. But I tell you, I really, really like that little pop of yellow. I don't know what it is. It just kind of helps offset it. Then I went in with my Widow Dots of white. I feel like they really make the mushroom hat pop. It's just another underglaze, and I tried to make them kind of thick so they stood up a little. I think next time what I might do, just because I'm learning, right, I might go in and put little bitty dots of actual clay to give it that raised effect, and then underglaze over the top. I don't know. It might be fun. So here I am. I'm going to paint this handle the same red I used on the mushroom hats. And I did not go in and do dots on the handle, although I think that could be fun too. But the handle is kind of a little bit fancy. It's got a little knobby, which is a really nice feel in your hand. Again, unfortunate that I poured these a little too thin because the handles are now hollow, which would not work for a hot drink. I mean, the whole point of the handle is to keep the hot from, it's a long story. So regardless, no need for using these for an actual drinking cup. For hot things, I do let my kids use it. They're very excited about it. But they mostly don't do hot things. They mostly do cold things. But you would be able to feel the heat in the handle, which does not... That defeats the point of having a handle, my friends. Just defeats the point. Finally, I went in for the full body with this velvet underglaze that is like this. It's called sea glass, and it's exactly the color that you think it is. It's very pale teal and just has this really beautiful, rich finish whenever it's done. Now, I don't really understand velvet versus not velvet. I don't seem to get it. I don't know why they have the velvet moniker, but one of the brands, I think Amico, and their velvet underglazes, I guess maybe they go on like velvet? I don't know. I just know it's nice, it's cool, it's fun. Getting around these little flowers was kind of a pain in the tuchus. It made me kind of regret going in and doing the detail work first. But I also feel like if I had made a mess with the detail work, then I could have cleaned it up with the outer stuff. So it's kind of a catch 182 or 183 or whatever the number is that it's supposed to be. It's a conundrum. It's a conundrum. Whichever way you go about it, it could end up being disaster. But a little bit of tedium is not terrible. It does take some time, and I'm not sure what they did in the original series with the colors of them, but I really feel like this worked out. It was really, really pretty in the end. It is, again, kind of a pain to have to go back and do 3 coats around your little details, but maybe we'll figure that out at a later date. Chalky finish of underglaze is just so funny to me that you put all this time and effort into it, and it's just this chalky, like almost dreamy look to it, because you know it's not going to turn out like that the colors are either going to be much more vibrant or they're going to burn out. So it's almost like a gamble. But this stage where you're going in and you're very carefully painting, and keep in mind, this is like 2 times speed. So what you're seeing, I'm going way even slower to make all these little detailed touches or whatever. And like if you compare this to, for example, the frog that I did, where it's almost a speed run, it's completely different. So detail work is tedious, friends. Detail work's tedious. So I left the inside undone, and then I dipped it off camera in some clear glaze and fired this puppy. It's a beautiful mug at the end of the day, and follow me if you like ceramics, I guess.